Okie dokie, I believe we are all the way live. Hello and welcome to my graveyard. I'm your host of the evening, the Cemetery Man from Salem, Mass. Always taking names and kicking candy ass. Live in Lily Curl here with you on Grande's Graveyard. Hello and welcome, everybody, ladies and gents, children of all ages. We are here live in living color here, and man, I'm stoked this week. We're going to be talking about one of my favorite, most quintessential horror franchises of the early 2000s and into even the latter part and the early start of the 2010s, and that is none other than the Final Destination series. Now, you're probably wondering, Ronnie, you always hold up the movies, right? Like, why are you not holding them up? Well, honestly, I don't own any of these, and I never have. I don't know why. Maybe because they were on TV so much. Like when I was a kid, I would grow. They were on the Sci-Fi Channel, IFC, you name it. They would, even MTV, I think at times would show the Final Destination movies. For some reason, those movies are always on. So I don't know. I just never felt the urge to buy them. I'm hoping that someday they come out with like a big like box set of all five of them with features and all new transfers would be cool. Maybe like a 4K box set of the series with features on each one. I think that would be really, really something that I would look forward to. I would totally be down to get that if they ever do release a Final Destination box set in high def with some features, man. I would be super stoked. We have one of my favorite people in the whole wide world, Dave Vavers in Naheezy. Thank you, man. Dude, how do I sound this week? Because I changed the sound settings. I noticed last week I sounded like I was talking through a muffler. I don't know if that's the case again. I changed the settings, but I can't really test it because I don't really have anybody to test it against, if you will. So I don't know. If I sound horrible, let me know, and I can always try to change the mic settings here. I have the camera and mic settings right in front of me. So if I do sound horrible, somebody please tell me because I have no idea. I think it looks very clear. This is an awesome camera. But as far as sound, I don't know until the show's over unless y'all tell me. So if y'all want to tell me, that's cool. I sound good. Okay, someone says I sound good. All right, that's all I need to hear. I hope I sound better than last week because last week I sounded like fucking. I was talking through a muffler and I had no goddamn clue. Um, so that is what it is. But this is going to be the last show of September, obviously, because next week, man, I am super excited to announce that it is Rocktober season, if you will. We're going to be partying all Rocktober long. It's the month for horror movie fans. And man, I'm going to be kicking off October with a top 10 Tales from the Dark Side episode ranking list. So that's going to be a really fun episode next week. And then we're going to do commentary, me and Horror Boy, on Hellraiser Part 3 Hell on Earth. So that's going to be the first half of Rocktober, and I'm super excited for that. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And I figure why not end September with a bang because, the right around the corner is our favorite month of the season. Of course, why not end it with a bang like Final Destination movies? So that's why I wanted to do this show today. Neon Black Reviews is in the house. What's going on, good brother? Hope all is well with you. I dig the series, especially the first few films. Own them all in blue. That's really cool. I have to ask, do they all have special features? Like, honestly, don't know. I don't have any single editions. I really am kind of waiting for a box set. Like, I hope the box set comes out one of these. Like, I would think that would be so sick because I don't know. I've never had the urge to buy them just because they're on so much, but they're fantastic. Most of them are fantastic movies. So I would like to own them all someday. If they ever do a box set, I will pre-order that shit. I don't even care what it costs, man. Oh, thank you, man. Yeah, I love this camera. This camera's pretty sick. It's a lot better than what I was shooting with before. Like what I had before was so bad, man. But I think this is pretty fire. But without further ado, I guess we'll get into the films, the topics at hand. This series, man, it's one of my favorites, like I was saying before. And I think it is one of the series that I pretty much say is one of the quintessential horror franchises of this millennium. I mean, it's this and Saw. I think those are the two. And maybe, I know some people probably say Paranormal Activity. It's probably those three. Although I never really cared much for Paranormal Activity. I like Final Destination and even Saw way better than I like the Paranormal Activity series, especially after the first one. And I'm not even really a big fan of the first Paranormal Activity, to be honest. But it all started in the year 2000. Yeah, the millennium started, and so did a brand new horror series. A horror series that I would say is kind of like our generation's Friday the 13th series. I would go that far into saying that because, especially as it goes on, they start to feel more and more like the formula that Friday the 13th was using in the 1980s, with the characters and death scenes, specifically. And it all started in the year 2000. It all started with James Wong's Final Destination. And I got plot synopsises up here for you guys, so I'm going to be reading all of them. If you don't know the plot synopsis already, I'm pretty sure everybody's seen these movies, but just for the sake of continuity here. After a teenager has a terrifying vision of him and his friends dying in a plane crash, he prevents the accident only to have death come back and hunt them down one by one. Yes, Final Destination from the year 2000. This is one of the best horror movies of the 2000s, of the entire decade, and of the entire century thus far. I mean, we're 20 years in, we're 20% in, and man, I got to say, this is definitely one of those films that I hold high regards. It's a film that ever since the first time I saw it, it absolutely just got me. Every single thing about it I liked, and man, I just think it's, in a lot of ways, it's a game changer. It's kind of a masterpiece, man. I love the first Final Destination. You basically have Devin Sawa as our lead character, and he does an excellent job as the lead. Alex Browning, and if you notice, all the characters in this film, I think the second and third film, they're all named after like horror movie legends. So Alex Browning was the guy who made Freaks in 1932. He's the same. That's the director's last name. You have Terry Chaney, who's of course Lon Chaney. You have all these, Billy Hitchcock, of course, after Alfred Hitchcock. So Val Lewton after Val Lewton, 40s, horror film producer. I love that. I think it's really cool that they decided to do, and that's from Sleepaway Camp 3 did that, of course, with the Brat Pack and the Brady Bunch and whatnot. I think that's fun. I think it adds a little bit of, we're paying homage in these ways. We're naming our characters after these past horror producers, directors, and actors. I think that's really cool. Gives a nice little like wink at the audience, kind of nice Easter egg thing. And man, the thing with the first Final Destination and why it stands out to me is the first thing right off the bat is the atmosphere. I think the atmosphere in the first Final Destination is unmatched by any of the other ones. And it's the lead in to the plane crash, right? So Alex gets up, our lead character, and he's nervous and he's jittery and he's afraid to fly, right? And he's getting all these kind of, not as much warnings, but as much, it seems almost that there's signs, just signs of maybe this could go wrong. What if this went wrong? And the director, James Wan, he does a really good job of building that tension all the way up until they get on the plane and our lead character has a vision of the plane exploding, all his friends dying, and then boom, he's back in reality. He's like, we need to get off this plane. The few that get off the plane, they're arguing in the terminal. And of course, the plane takes off and explodes just like Alex says. And man, just I get goosebumps every single time I watch that, of him sitting there. It's just real. I could feel it explode, and all of you died and all this stuff. And man, his performance is phenomenal. You really do feel what he feels in that scene, and you feel horrible for him. And the thing I like that James Wong does, and he doesn't pull any punches here, they show you the people on the plane, right? They show you that there's a newborn baby on this plane. There's also a man who has, mental and physical disability. He's on the plane, and the Todd character, he goes, man, it would take a really messed up god to take down this plane. And you just look and you survey through young kids and babies and challenged people and whatnot, all these people, different people, and he's like, man, this would be a really fucked up god to take down this plane. And right then and there, you're like, man, nobody's really safe. If this plane blew up and went down and all these people that are innocent on paper, nobody is safe. Death does not care. Death does not discriminate, if you will. And I think that really opens up the box for so many different possibilities. And once these characters start dying off one by one, man, it's just so entertaining and creative how they do this whole kind of Rube Goldberg thing where if this starts, it starts a chain reaction to that, and thus leading to this character getting crushed or run over by a bus or walking into an explosion and then pulling a towel off the counter and the knife was connected to the towel and impales her, and then the house explodes. Like it's all these awesome kind of Rube Goldberg things where it just leads to somebody getting killed. And man, it's just so fantastically directed by James Wan again. I mean, I just think he does an excellent, excellent job with these movies and setting up the kind of kill scenes. And man, I think another thing that kind of gets lost, especially in the first film, is the psychology. I think there's a lot of good psychology in this movie where there's a scene where Alex and Claire, played by Ali Larter, they're talking and he says to her, he says, what if by some way, shape, or form I cheated death? We got off that plane, and but we were supposed to die. We were supposed to die in that plane, and that means that death is still going to come for us because we were supposed to die in that plane. We shouldn't be sitting here right now drinking lattes and talking. We should be dead, really. And it's that scene where he's trying to convince her that death had a plan and death has a design. And even though she's looking at him like he's crazy, you as the viewer, you're like, he's got a point, man. And this is what the all these movies end up being, is that death are after them. It's not a physical person, it's just an entity that is stalking them and hunting them down one by one in the way they were supposed to die because they were supposed to die. And I just think that stuff is brilliant, man. All the psychology in these movies. Like Claire discusses how, I was a little kid and my father, we were at a 7-Eleven and this guy was behind us with a gun and my dad turned around too quick and he shot him dead right then and there. Really, and she goes, was he supposed to die? Was he a part of death's plan? And throwing that out to the viewers is a kind of interesting point, right? Like, is everything does everything happen for a reason? Do all the people that die for a reason? Is it a wrong place, wrong time sort of thing? Or is it a case of when it's your time to go, it's your time to go? I love that. I love throwing that psychology out to the viewer and being like, oh my gosh, like, is there coincidences? Is there mistakes? And I think what these movies are trying to tell you that no, everybody is in the right place at the right time when they are at their final destination of death, of course. And I just think that really gets slept upon, especially in this first movie. And man, the death scenes in this, they're fantastic. I think they're really good. The one that always haunted me was the Todd character. He's in the bathroom and he's taking a shit, you think about it. What do we do every day? I mean, we go to the bathroom, we take a shit every single day of our lives, get ready for a shower, maybe shave. Everybody does that. Everybody. So this guy, he takes crap, and you see this kind of waterfall, come out of the toilet. He doesn't notice it. He ends up slipping on it, falling in the shower, and the shower string kind of rolls around his neck, and he chokes and dies. And I remember as a kid just being like horrified at his bloodshot eyes as he's gasping for air and trying to grab the scissors, and he's just a little bit too late. It's just a horrific fucking scene because it's something again that I can kind of relate to. I go to the bathroom every single day of my life. Now you're telling me, oh, this water could pour out and I could fall in my shower and I could die. Like, absolutely mind blew me. And I just thought that was fantastically done, because that's something that again I've done every single day of my life and will continue to do every single day of my life. But you don't sense the danger. And even the Todd character in this movie says, we all know that we're going to die someday, but we all, when we say that sentence, we all imagine it in a distant future, in an obscure hour. We don't know that death could arrive this same afternoon. And that psychology, man, just always got underneath my skin. And man, it gave me goosebumps. And that's why I really like this first movie. It really tells you that death is around the corner at any and every time. And it's just really an interesting thing to tackle, really creative, in my opinion. Because I know there were movies before this, like Soul Survivors in 1983, I think, that had tackled this. And I know there was even a Twilight Zone back in the early 60s that tackled this theme, the episode 22. I mean, it had a plane crash and all this stuff, like the exact same thing. But I think here it's done with such a good atmosphere, with such a good direction, and with such a good cast. I like the entire cast. I like Kerr Smith. I like Ali Larter. I like Devin Sawa. I even like Stifler. I forget his damn name. Shaolin Scott. I really like him in the film. These characters are really good, and I like their banter back and forth and arguing about death. they're all thinking that Devon Sawa is behind the plane exploding, and obviously he's not. He's just trying to help, trying to warn them. And it's all of them saying, we're not listening, we're not heeding to whatever you say. That ultimately leads to a lot of their demises. And I like that there's the whole rule of you have to intervene to save somebody, and if I intervene, I can change the design, and bam, it's going to shoot to the next person. And there's this really suspenseful scene where they're all in Keir Smith's car, and the train is coming, and he's like, I'm going to choose when I'm dying. That's what I'm going to do. I choose when I live and die. And he's like, get out of the fucking car. And they end up pulling him out of the car because his seatbelt is stuck and the car is locked and all this stuff, and he can't drive the car out of the way. So it took that physical intervention to get him out of the car and get him to safety. Brilliant stuff. I really like that. And then, of course, Sean William Scott's like, you're next. You're dead. And then, of course, some scrap metal flies up, boom, decapitates Sean William Scott. You're like, oh my God. Crazy ass shit, man. And again, this one has just a really good pace, tone, and creep factor. This is definitely the spookiest one of the five. And the one, if you're watching these in October, I would pick this one because it has the best atmosphere. It really does. I think it's phenomenal film. James Wong does an excellent job. Glenn Morgan, Jeff Reddick, I think is his name. He helped come up with the idea. He didn't unfortunately go on to do much. He went on to do like Tamara, which is a shitty fucking movie with Jenna Dewan playing a killer. I swear to God, that's a really bad one. But I think Glenn Morgan and James Wong, their partnership here, they did a really good job. And this was James Wong's first film. That's incredible to me, man. How the hell is this your first film? Like, he did a great job. And it's what's really sad is he didn't have much of a career after this. He made the third Final Destination. He made the one, and then his career pretty much ended with Dragon Ball Evolution, which is one of the biggest pieces of shit of all time. It's really a shame that this guy who made this movie. I mean, I love the first Final Destination. Went on to make that. Like, it's just really sad to see how his career kind of perished. Same with Glenn Morgan. I mean, Black Christmas 2006, that was the end of his career. So it's really a shame because they were able to do a lot of things in this movie. I mean, they make John Denver music scary. Rockin' Mountain High, and that woman, Val Lewton getting the drink and her glass cracks and pours into the computer, boom, all these computer things into her neck, and just really creepy ass shit, man. Stuff that to this day horrifies me. The first Final Destination is a genuinely creepy ass film. And I think that's what makes it, in a lot of ways, stand above most of the sequels. I think the first Final Destination it's that atmosphere, it's that tone, it's that originality, man. I think it is just really, really well done in this film. I love the finale. I love Devon Sawa as the lead. I think he's the best lead of the series. Thought he did an excellent job and explaining to you how this mythos works and the design and all this stuff. Just a really, really good performance and a really solid movie overall, man. I really enjoy the first Final Destination. I'm going to come in with a solid 9 out of 10 for the first Final Destination. I'm just a really, really big fan of this one. And it's one that I try to rewatch every now and again because, man, it's just one of those quintessential early 2000s horror films. I mean, it's this, American Psycho, Saw. These movies kind of changed the landscape for the years to come. And I really enjoy the first Final Destination. I think it's kind of a masterpiece. Um, oh, Nigor's in it, Heezy. What's going on, good brother? Hope all is well with you, my man. What's going on? Pretty sure I could watch Ali Larter for laundry for 90 minutes. Yo, absolutely. Ali Larter is. Have you ever seen Obsessed with Ali Larter? Holy shit, man. She's so hot in that movie and crazy. I adore Ali Larter, man. She's beautiful. Jeffrey Riddick also wrote Day of the Dead. Oh God, man, what the hell happened to Jeffrey, man? Brutal career. I mean, and Tamara's bad too. I mean, Tamara's a piece of shit movie too, man. I don't know. I guess he just had this one good idea. They bought it from him, and that was really it. Kind of a one-hit wonder. But yeah, man, the first Final Destination, an excellent, excellent horror movie in my opinion. So then you fast forward to 3 years later. See, what's cool is they took about 3 years in between almost all of these, exception of the fourth and fifth one. They took 2 years. But 3 years later, you get the sequel. This one directed by David R. Ellis, who has made some films I like for sure. It is Final Destination 2. Yes, you can't cheat death twice. Excellent tagline. I have a little synopsis here. When Kimberly has a violent premonition of highway pileup, she blocks the freeway, keeping a few others that were meant to die safe. Or are they? The survivors mysteriously start dying, and it's up to Kimberly to stop it before she's next. Oh, yes. This is Final Destination 2 from 2003. My favorite of the series. I adore Final Destination 2. To me, it's one of the best sequels, one of the best horror sequels, period, man. I'm a huge fan of Final Destination 2. And in a lot of ways, I think it tones up the volume of the first film, but in a lot of ways, it keeps the spook factor and it keeps that originality there, which is something that I think the sequels after this really struggle to do. Like part three and part five, they almost feel like remakes of the first film, whereas this really does have its own individual feel to it, in my opinion. Of course, the scene that stands out to me is the fucking pileup scene. I mean, right off the bat, you have our lead character played by AJ Cook, and she's driving, and you see this whole vision of all these people dying on the highway. And man, it is just so goddamn memorable. And it's again something we can all relate to, even more so than a plane crash or a roller coaster or a NASCAR or a fucking bridge collapsing in the fifth one, right? It's a highway. You know, anybody and everybody who's driven before has been on the highway. So it's the fact that, man, I'm driving on a highway in front of this log truck. A chain comes loose, and all of a sudden you've got a crazy pile up on aisle three, man, and all hell is going to break loose. This opening sequence in Final Destination 2 is phenomenal, man. Absolutely phenomenal. Like every single time I watch it, I'm like, oh my God, this is fucking crazy. You have the Eugene character who's on a motorcycle. He falls off his motorcycle, rams into a log. He's alive, and then his motorcycle crushes him in turn. You have the stoner character Rory. His car flips over, tumbles over a ton of times. When he finally lands, he's like, oh shit. He looks to the right, and you just hear him scream. He's like, ah, boom, gets wiped out by a Mack truck. I remember being like, oh my God, like, holy shit. It's one of those most holy shit openings in movie history. Of course, this one creeped me out the most. The mother and son driving, right? He's like, look out, mom, look out. He's like, stop, hit the brakes. And she goes, hits the brakes, and her fucking Dasani water bottle falls underneath the brake. She starts hitting the brake, and because the water bottle's there, she can't stop. Boom, their car explodes. Fun fact, every time I'm drinking a dew, man, which I'm drinking one right now. Every time I'm drinking a dew or a water or whatever, I put it in the opposite cup holder so that can't happen to my dumb ass. Okay? Like that's how much of an impact Final Destination 2's opening has had on me. I'm afraid of a water bottle falling underneath my brake pedal, so I can't stop my car, right? So these are little quirks and things that you remember and kind of live by. It's terrifying. And then of course you have the character that just won the lottery, and he's like, oh, help, fire around him, and then bam, he gets whacked with a Mack truck, and then into Kimberly's car they go. Just a phenomenal opening sequence. And I will say this, and a lot of people will probably, especially even later in this show, you'll probably be calling me a hypocrite, but it's how you use CGI right, in my humble opinion. It's quick, it's sparing. Yes, the logs are CGI. You have one of the logs bounce up and destroy this cop, goes right through his fucking face and out the back. Crazy stuff. That's how you use CGI sparingly. It's not shown so much where I go, that's fake. Like the Final Destination, the fourth one, where everything's CGI. There's no practicality. This really does look like real cars driving into real cars, and a lot of it is practical, which I do appreciate. And the CGI they use, it's sparingly used so it doesn't look fake and it doesn't diminish anything. So this opening has all that much impact and then some. It's a fantastic opening sequence. And I think it's the reason that I kind of have this one as my favorite and I prefer this one. It's just fantastic fucking filmmaking by David R. Ellis. I think it's the best scene in the entire series. And definitely, I see a lot of you just totally agree. Black Review said second film has the best opening for sure. Totally agree with that. And Nigor, he agrees, prefers the second one to the first. Oh, yeah, hell yeah, Mountain Dew, man. I'm a big Mountain Dew guy. But and I also will say I really like the characters in this one as well, and I like that as opposed to almost all the I think exact all the other films, the characters know each other, right? Like in the third one, they're all go to the same high school. In the fourth one, they're all friends, and in the fifth one, I think they're all friends on a bus, right? This one, I like that they're completely total different strangers because that should be right. That's design. I'm not targeting a fucking high school class. I'm targeting these random people for these random reasons. And I thought that was really scary. You have the Eugene character who thinks this is all mumbo jumbo, and he talks about, the 180 people, and he thinks it's all hoax. And you have the mother and her son. I don't have time for this. The one guy who's won the lottery. I'm the luckiest guy in the world, right? He promptly has probably the best death scene in this movie. My man is making fish sticks. He's getting calls from people that, oh, you won the lottery, let's hook up, all this stuff, which is brilliant. I love that. The scene opens, he's making dinner, and he throws the spaghetti out the window. Like, fuck that, I don't want to eat that tonight. He's making his dinner. All these things, again, Rube Goldberg kind of thing, leads to his apartment catching on fire. His hand is stuck in the drain. He's trying to get out a ring, and all this chaos is going around him, and he knows his apartment's probably about to explode. He somehow manages to get out of there. He runs out, gets down the ladder just before it explodes. I mean, James Bond style. He lands on the ground and he goes, man, I must be the luckiest son of a bitch alive. Takes one step, slips on the spaghetti that he threw out the window at the beginning of the scene in front of the ladder. Bam! The ladder comes down and impales him in the eye. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. See, you worked us all the way, like ABC, right? You worked us, you know, there's a microwave going on fire, his apartment's on fire, his hand's stuck. He's obviously going to blow up, right? Nope, he's going to get out at the last second. Everyone thinks, oh man, my man cheated death. Not really. Slips on the spaghetti that he threw out in the beginning, which he fucked himself, obviously, and then bam, impaled by a ladder. Really, really, really original, brilliant death scene there. And it's fun because they work you all the way to go, oh my God, he got out. What a miracle. And then nope, he didn't get out. That was the plan the entire time. That was just gravy. Here's the meat. I thought that was really cool, that scene. There's a lot of fun ones in this. There's the one where the kid, he's in the dentist's office and they're giving him the gas, and you're thinking, oh man, my man's going to suffocate. You have this thing from the ceiling fall in his mouth and he can't breathe. The doctor comes in and saves him. You're like, oh, this kid's fine. Gets off, gets out of the fucking place, and he sees these pigeons. He scares these pigeons, and they fly into this guy who has a plane of glass on a crane. He hits them, and he hits the buttons, and then the fucking plane of glass comes out, kills this kid, smushes him like a fucking grape. I would be like, holy shit, man. Right in front of his mom, too. Like, you met my mom. Oh, my God. Like, the mother, like, the awful scream, man. I love that shit, man. That is a crazy-ass kill. The elevator decapitation scene and the man with hooks, like that weird fucking guy. Just excellent fucking kills in this movie. That's really the thing that shines mostly about this one. It's the kills. And I think even more so though, and I'll go this far, I think this one, as well as the first one, has a great psychology to it. There's a really good scene that nobody talks about is all these people that have survived the highway crash are in a car. And the Eugene character, he says, you know what's crazy? This isn't the first time I cheated death. And they're like, what are you talking about? He goes, well, I was working at this one school for however many years and I got transferred. And 2 days later, some disgruntled student came to the building with a knife and killed that substitute, the guy that took over for me. He said that teacher would have been me. And it's just terrifying. And then they all have their stories. Like one guy said, oh man, I was in Paris chilling with some women. Next thing I know, I saw this dude get whacked by a sign. And they all are telling their stories. And one was on the bus that ran over Terry Chaney. And Ali Larter returns in this film to kind of give a little exposition. And I really like that she's blonde in this one, so she's looking oh so good. I know my man Neon Black Reviews loves her. I love her too, man, especially blonde Ali Larter. I mean, she's looking even better in this one. And I think that scene was really chilling because here's all these people that would have died had it not been for the characters that got off of Flight 180. Here, because if the cop character who's in this, if he hadn't cleaned up Billy Hitchcock's dead body, he would have been with his partner. His partner ended up getting shot and killed that night. So they kind of connected that all these characters are alive because of the people that got off the plane in the first film. That's really cool. They don't do that with any of the other sequels. And I really like that they connect it in that way, that they owe their lives to those people. And yeah, Igor said in the comment, it does come full circle, and I like that. And also, death is working in reverse order in this film because of Ali Larter still being alive. I liked that whole element because you're thinking, okay, so the cop's going to be the first one to die, right? If symmetry holds with the first one, no, he's going to be the last to die because he was the first to die in the Vision. Again, creative, fun, interesting, kept it fresh, which is something that the series kind of struggled to do after this movie, I think. Again, you have some really a lot of more fun death scenes. You have the one guy who, and I like that they gave him a little bit of a character. The guy who was the stoner character, he walks up to our lead AJ Cook and he goes, if I die after all this, and if you are still alive, would you mind to go to my apartment and clean up all my porno mags? He says, if I die, I don't want my mom finding that, and having that last memory of me being, I've read porno mags and I had drugs. And he said, can you just flush those drugs down the toilet? I like that. That's something you're giving your character a little bit of an arc. He's not just a mindless pothead stoner. He cared about what his mom was going to say if he passed away. I think very simple, but very effective. It adds a little bit of meat to the potatoes for me. I like all the Eugene character's fun. He's mocking all this and I control my own life. And another really cool thing about this that opens up the door to so many possibilities that the sequels really never touch upon is the fact that when you are not next in Death's plan, in a way you cannot die, in a way you're invincible. There's a scene where Eugene's character, he's not next to die, and he takes a gun, he starts shooting, trying to shoot himself, and the trigger doesn't go off, and it's not on the safety. In a way, he's invincible because if he dies before the next person in Death's plan, he ruins the design. So in a way, he's invincible. Loves that. They should have come up with that concept in any of these other three movies to follow because there's so much you could have done with that. Let's say somebody did die. Let's say somebody did die out of order and the rest survive. That would be a really cool way to end a Final Destination film. They beat it by destroying the order because if you don't die in the right order, Death's design goes to shit. Really think there was so much that they could have done there, and they really don't in the other three movies. I think it's mentioned in the fourth film, but they don't really ever execute that. But I like that they set that up here. Again, this is a sequel that it really sets up for stuff down the road that we never get, but I do think it's done well in this particular film. The psychology, yeah, I agree with you, man. The psychology in the first two films is off the chart. It really is. It makes you think, and I like AJ Cook's explanation of how her mother got killed. Right? She says we were in this mall and we saw on the TV that this one kid had killed himself. Of course, the Todd character from the first film, they thought he killed himself, and she said I was just standing there thinking, how could someone do that to themselves? And after that scene, her mother pretty much sacrifices herself for AJ Cook to survive. And in a lot of ways, that was a prevention. And like, I thought, wow, like that again, giving our characters a lot more arc than usual, especially with the series as it goes on. Um, really good stuff. And then again, really fun finale. You have this really crazy scene where this barbed wire fence, it flies out and kills our stoner character. It goes through all parts of his body and he kind of falls into three. Incredible stuff. You have a scene where they're in the hospital and they think that Eugene's going to suffocate to death, and Ali Larter opens the door, thus causing the room to explode. So she and Eugene die. Crazy stuff, man. And they do set up this thing with this pregnant lady that it kind of goes nowhere. And I don't know, man. I do think that this one, it keeps it fresh. And the kills are good. The characters are good. The direction, I think, is really good by David R. Ellis. I would argue that this is his best film. I thought he did a really wonderful job. He had made some other good films like Cellular. Of course, he's the man who brought us Snakes on a Plane, which I think that's pretty funny. But man, I think he does a good job. And I think while this one may not be as spooky or atmospheric, there's still those elements there. They're just a little bit toned down where they tone up the gore, the violence, and the concept. And I think that's why this movie works a little bit better than the first one. I like it a little bit more than the original film. But I do think that for what it's worth, both of these movies are wonderful. Both of these movies are great horror movies. I love the first two. To me, the first two, if you stopped it there, if it ended here, you'd be all set because I just think both these movies are fantastic. And before I move on to the third one, I forgot to mention this character in the first review. Tony Todd plays this kind of mortician character named Bloodworth, and of course he is the one that kind of gives our characters some hope, if you will. He goes, in death there are no escapes, no cheats, no lies, all this stuff. He's really this creepy ass mortician. He's in the first two films and he makes an appearance in the fifth film. He's really fun in these movies, and it's cool to see him kind of talking about death. And a lot of people have theorized maybe he's death personified. Maybe he is the Grim Reaper, but he is a physical being, he's a mortician. I always really like Tony Todd, of course, Candyman, Night of the Living Dead 90. He's just a wonderful actor, and he adds a lot of tone and creep element to the first two films that I think the third and fourth film especially, they really miss him. He should be in all five. He's like your crazy Ralph character almost. He's your constant. You should have him in all these movies. And for some reason, after this one, they only use him for a brief scene or two in part five. But man, I think his character added so much more because you get the idea that he knows more. He knows something he's not telling them. And as a viewer, it just creeps you out. You're just like, oh my God, just tell us, what can they do to escape this? And obviously they can't. And I think that character is really well done. So thank you, Mr. Tony Todd, because you're awesome, man. One of my favorite horror genre actors to ever live, man. Absolutely love Tony Todd. So if I had to come in with a rating for the Final Destination 2 movie, I'm going to come in with a little bit higher. I'm going to go 9.5 out of 10. A little bit more. I like this one than the original. Just a fantastic movie and a sequel that I have grown to really definitely say I like more than the original film. So that's Final Destination 2, David R. Ellis. A wonderful, wonderful job, sir. I love Final Destination 2. And that brings us to 3 years later. And once again, James Wong entered the director's chair. He entered the door to come back to bring the series that he brought to life and have another entry in it. It is none other than 2006's Final Destination 3. Yes, Final Destination 3. I can read the synopsis for you here. A student's premonition of a deadly roller coaster ride saves her life and a lucky few, but not from death itself, which seeks out those who escaped their fate. Yes, Final Destination Part 3. Oh, man. I'm very mixed on this one. This one in part 5, I rewatched them both for this show, the prep for this show. And I got to say, I'm still very much in the middle on both of them. And it's close between which one I like better. Um, but this film, okay, I'll do positives and negatives with this. Positives, I think James Wong brings some atmosphere back. I think there's a lot more atmosphere in this one than there is maybe in the second film. However, I don't think it's on the level of the atmosphere that we get in the first film. I don't think it's quite there. It's there, but it's not as much of a presence. It's not as much as an entity as it feels like it is in the first film, and in some ways the second film too. I really, really like the characters in this one. This is the first one where it feels like these are Friday the 13th characters. You have the dumb jock, you have the two slutty girls, you have the perv, you have the nice guy who's going to get dumped by his bitchy girlfriend, you have the moral final girl played by Mary Elizabeth Winstead, you have the two goth characters. This one's very fucking Friday the 13th with its characters. To me, it feels very Friday the 13th. And of course, you get all this really good lead in. I like the lead in where they're taking pictures around the carnival. You get introduced to these characters, and something just feels off. And of course, that is the roller coaster that is going to, in fact, doom them until Mary Elizabeth Winstead, of course, says otherwise. I like that stuff. I think some of the death scenes are really good. I think the tanning bed scene is horrifying. I think that's a really horrifying death scene. Burning alive, I think, would have to be the number one death that I'd be like would want to not die of. Like burning, I think has to be the worst death. It just I couldn't imagine how fucking painful it is. Apparently, it's like the most excruciating pain, and then you just feel nothing and pass the fuck out. That's what I've heard. But man, I don't. Burning, man, that's horrifying to me. And of course, I like the whole setup in the roller coaster. I like that they use that song. And of course, in the second film, they use Highway to Hell. And in the first film, they use that John Denver music. I like the song choice in this. I thought that was really fun. Roller coaster as they're burning alive and screaming. That's a fucking scary ass death scene. Of course, the jock Texas battle where I'm invincible, baby. I'm invincible. He pushes forward and these weights come, crush his head like a fucking melon. That's classic. That's a really good one too. Um, it does have its moments and it does have its atmosphere and it does have decent acting. I like Mary Elizabeth Winstead. I like Ryan Merriman. I like them. Negatives though, it really does feel like a remake of the first one to me in a lot of ways. Almost to the point where I know in the first one there's a scene where Alex he knows that there's a screw loose, and that's how he knows that the premonition is about to happen that he just saw. In this one, it's a stick of gum, and you see the stick of gum. I'm like, that's the first film. And in a lot of ways, just I don't know, it just feels very much like the first one. Again, though, it is the same director and the same producer and the same writers and all this stuff. So maybe that is why it just feels like same shit, different day a lot in this one. I will say, I think the roller coaster sequence is one of the weakest of the series. I don't like the whole premonition. I really don't. I think it's kind of weak. I think they could have done more with it. And in a lot of ways, they goof because the thing that starts the roller coaster disaster is the perv character has a camera and it flies out of his hand and then lands on the track, and then that sets them off the track. So in a lot of ways, if he doesn't get on, the roller coaster honestly never should have come off the tracks. So it's kind of a goof because he doesn't get on the ride. So I'm just kind of like, that this never should have happened. He didn't get on the ride. So if he doesn't get on the ride, the disaster doesn't happen. So kind of, I know it's a nitpick, and some people go, well, they wouldn't have a movie Grande. I get that. I totally get that argument. And I don't let that ruin the film for me. But it is kind of a, what the fuck? Like, none of that would have happened then. In a way, they cheated death by making that guy not get on the ride. So, that part is kind of meh. I think it does have decent moments of, I like the song, There is Someone Walking Behind You. That plays throughout the movie. There's a scene where there's this truck coming for them and they can't get out of this drive through. There's a scene where our lead character, she's driving to this carnival to try to save her sister. And of course, there's a character that the goth character, he's angry that his girlfriend has died and he's following her in the car. Creepy. It adds a creep tone to it. I think this one does it's the last one that feels creepy to me, genuinely creepy. Whereas 4 and 5, I think there's really no atmosphere to either one of them. And that's why I probably would put this one a little bit over part 5. It has a little bit better of an atmosphere, a little bit better of a cast, I think, and a little bit better characters. Um it is a hard one to talk about, it really is. Um I do know that the DVD had this whole cool featurette where you could choose the character's fates. Where, if you want a certain character to live, you could hit a certain button and that character lives and survives at the end of the film. But that was really cool. I think it would have been cool maybe if you went through the trouble of filming some living, some dying, maybe release different cuts theatrically worldwide. Have the cut where, yes, they all die, but you could also have the cut where, hey, some of these characters live and you have a completely different ending in a different theater. That would have been something fun to do with this, and like people would be like, oh man, I want to watch all these different versions, and you could get people really obsessed and being like, what did I miss? How did this character die in the film where he does die? And why did he survive in my version? That would have been something fun to do. I think this one, it screams same shit, different day. Even though it does work in some ways, it's just they should have done a little something to change it up, a little bit something to change the dynamic, if you will. And at the end of the day, it feels very much more formulaic than the first two, and it really sets the formula for the next two movies to follow, I think. That whole kind of Friday the 13th formula, fun, boobs, blood, mayhem formula. This movie starts that to me. The first two movies aren't that at all, in my opinion, because there's so much more. There's so many more layers. Whereas this one, I think the layers are kind of there, but they're faded. They're really faded. Um, and I do think probably my favorite scene in the movie is a scene most people don't talk about. It's towards the end of the film where Mary Elizabeth Winstead, she's taking the subway home, and there's a character with a guitar on the train, and he is singing that song that's been playing throughout the movie. There is someone walking behind you. Turn around. And the way James Wong directs it, it's a very slow close up on Mary Elizabeth Winstead's face, and she's kind of watching in horror, and the lights flicker, and for a brief moment, it does feel like death itself is on that subway with her. And for that brief moment, I got that feeling that I got from the first film. It's that atmosphere again where I'm like, oh my God, she's in trouble. Get off. And she watches him leave the train or the subway. She sits down and she looks to the left, and you see behind her that she's on the subway 180. So all hell's going to break loose. And of course it does. It was that one scene where I felt this feels very much like the first one. I wish the whole movie was like this one little scene, because that one scene is fantastically directed. It really is. And I think James Wong, it's sad that this was the second to last movie he ever did. I mean, that Dragon Ball Evolution, that's a career killer. That's a love guru. That's the end, man. It's so sad. You can't rebound from a movie like that. You really can't. I hope he comes back and directs something someday, but man, it is a crying shame that his career had to end that way. I do think this is a step down. I do think this is a step down from the first two movies. I don't think it's nearly as psychological as the first two. I don't think it's nearly as interesting. I think, again, there are some death scenes I like, but at the end of the day, I think this one, it's the beginning of the kind of downward trend that this series kind of takes. I like parts of it. I dislike parts of it. To me, it's a very middle of the road film. I'm very middle of the road on it. I'm going to come in. This is a tough one to rate, man. I'm going to come in with a 6 out of 10. I think it's a little bit of a step down. It's not a bad movie. It's a movie that I would say it's a passable movie. Like if someone said, hey, let's watch a Final Destination movie, and someone said, let's watch this one, I wouldn't say, oh, it's not like it's not a bad movie. But I do think it's a step down from the first two. It's solid. I'm going to go 6 out of 10. Solid movie overall, passable movie, good acting, decent direction, some fun death scenes, but really at the end of the day, feels very much same shit, different day. When after part two, I felt that movie opened up so many fun doors that you could have went down, and they really don't. They just kind of play it safe. And I don't know. That's kind of why Final Destination 3 is middle of the road, little bit above average, I would say. 6 out of 10. That brings us though to one that is below average. That brings us to probably the worst of the series, and probably the movie that I think they should erase this movie. Like this is a piece of shit movie. I don't know how that the same guy who made Final Destination 2, the best one in the series, turns around and makes the worst one. And in a lot of ways, it's almost like the whole Rick Rosenthal thing with Halloween 2 and Halloween Resurrection. That's the only other thing I can think of. Whereas Halloween 2 is my favorite Halloween film. It is. And I know a lot of people, most people love the original the best, and that's fine. But for some reason, that was always my favorite one. I loved the second one. Turn around 20 something years later, my man makes Halloween Resurrection with Busta Rhymes. And that's widely regarded to be one of, if not the worst. It's not my least favorite, for sure. It's not my least favorite, but it's a bad film. Like, I'll be honest. And it's incredible to me that someone who made the best one can turn around so many years later, make the worst one. And this is the case here with David R. Ellis's entry into the series from 2009. It is The Final Destination. Holy shit. Oh, man, I'll read the synopsis. After a young man's premonition of a deadly race car crash helps save the lives of his peers, Death sets out to collect those who evaded their end. I'm sorry. Oh, God, this is a fucking piece of shit. This is like the worst case scenario of what this concept, how bad you could do this, because you could fuck this up, and it's just like slasher film, man. You can fuck up a slasher film. It's hard to do, but man, when you do it, man, it really, it's bad. The opening in this, It's the exact opposite of the opening of the second one, which is crazy because it's the same fucking guy. I don't understand how it happens, but I guess time, money, and this one was presented in 3D, which fuck that. Oh god, it's so bad. This one is like a NASCAR opening, and like one guy flies in the audience, and all these people die, and like it's just so bad because this one it's the absolute opposite of the second one in the fact that they abuse the CGI. This is CGI out the fucking wazoo. This is CGI that completely cripples this film from having any fucking credibility in this series. There's not one death scene in this where I went, "Oh man, that was brutal," or "Oh man, that looked real." Now all of this looks like cartoon. It's almost like in a way a comedy or a parody of a Final Destination film. It feels like if Scary Movie did a Final Destination movie, that's this movie. It's fucking there's no atmosphere here. There's no good character here. There's no psychology here. There's no really good death scenes in this. I mean, you have the opening where everybody fucking gets killed by CGI. You have this one couple, they're running and they get crushed by a pillar, and it's quick cut, and you see the thing that fucking crashes them. I mean, that's horrible. You have one one guy he gets impaled on the part of the bench because the bench is so old it cracks, spikes up, and impales him. All CGI, terrible. It's just a horrible opening premonition. It is. One way he gets whacked by a tire. Horrible. It's horrible. It really is. I mean, it's really poorly fucking done, and it looks terrible. Your characters in this film. Let me read you the character names. I shit you not. This has got to be a fucking joke, but it's not, which is insane. Krista Allen, she's one of the characters film. Her character's name is MILF. MILF. Justin Wellborn's character, who's one of the first to die, his character's name, Racist. I'm not kidding you. That's their fucking names. You went from the first two films where you had some characters named after horror icons, Val Lewton, Billy Hitchcock, and in the second one you had some really fun ones too. Now you're calling them these fucking like what the fuck, man? Like what? MILF and Racist? That's two of your characters in this? Like what the fuck? There was no energy put into this script. The cast is a very dead cast. They don't bring anything to this movie. Nobody stands out. I don't understand what went wrong here because David R. Ellis, in my opinion, you look at the third and fourth film and they're mind-boggling, right? James Wong's The Original Final Destination, game-changing horror film, great horror film. Look, the second one, David R. Ellis pumping new life, turning up the volume, but keeping what James Wong did in there while just adding a little bit more. Brilliant. They both come back and give, in my opinion, sort of lackluster efforts into the series. Now, part three is way better than this. Part three is the original compared to this. It really is. I mean, this makes the third one look way fucking better. But this, man, what the fuck, man? This is horrible. You have one guy who he loses his lucky coin or something, and it goes into the pool, and then the pool jet sucks out his fucking intestines, and those couldn't even be practical. Intestines couldn't be practical here. It's a CGI comes out. Really? Think of how effective that would have been if it was real guts and gore flying. That would have been fucking cool, man. That, in my opinion, would have been fucking cool, and they didn't even go that route. That the intestines had to be fucking CGI. You have the only character I liked in this film was Michael T. Williamson. He also played, I believe, Bubba in Forrest Gump. Really, I love that character in that movie. He's the only character that you like, and you get any really knowledge of his past. You learn that his wife and kids had passed away in a car accident, and he can come to, peace with if this was his time to die. I liked that character. The whole movie should have been around him because everybody else in this movie fucking sucks. You don't even remember their fucking names because some of them don't even have names. Some of them are named MILF. What the fuck? And MILF gets a fucking lawnmower and a rock hits the lawnmower, flies out of the lawnmower, and hits her eye, and she hits the ground. That's one of the death scenes in this movie. You have one lady, she's in a movie theater, and the movie fucking projector explodes. One person's on an escalator, and their shoelace gets caught, and they fuck. Holy shit, man. This is a fucking piece of shit. We have no ideas. We are trying to get your money, and we're going to throw the 3D gimmick on it to get more money. And man, it fucking shows. This is a piece of fucking shit. I don't have any positives for this movie. Not one. I don't think it's well directed. I don't think it's well acted. I don't think it looks good. I think all the fucking death scenes are bad. Not one stands out. Not one. And that's incredible. And what's funny is this one has the highest body count in the whole series. Doesn't feel like it. Doesn't feel like it at all, because it's proof that quality is truly greater than quantity. Because I remember that first movie when that character dies in the shower. I will never forget that. Never. Every time I'm in the bathroom, I'm like very fucking weary of anything leaking so I don't slip, right? None of that's in this movie. You don't have any moments like that. It's just a true turd. I think this is a piece of shit movie. It seems like you guys agree with me. The fourth film has the worst opening easily. 3D was bad even in the theater. Dude, I couldn't imagine spending. I couldn't imagine what you spent on the ticket. I would have been furious, man. CGI might be worse than Wrong Turn. Dude, Wrong Turn 3 is so bad. You know what's crazy? I will say this in Neon Black Reviews. Wrong Turn 3 is actually worse than this movie. I'm not even kidding. Like, that's fucking saying something, because I hate this movie. But Wrong Turn 3 is I think it's the worst Wrong Turn movie. It's fucking horrible. I despise that film. I revisited that film about a couple months ago. I was gonna do a franchise review of Wrong Turn. I rewatched that and decided not to do it. That's how fucking bad. Maybe one day down the road, but I fucking Wrong Turn 3. Holy shit. You're right, man. CGI. But if Scary Movie had Final Destination film, it would be the fourth film. It really is. It really is like that. It feels like a parody. It doesn't feel like anybody is taking the situation seriously at all to me. It's very weak, man. Survival of the Dead is better than the shit. It definitely is. It really is. And that's a movie where, again, the CGI is horrible, but at least it has some kind of character motion going for it. The story is there. It's brutal, man. 0 out of 10 sequel does not deserve a star. I don't know if I'm gonna go 0 out of 10. Granted, I agree with you. There's nothing fucking I could really say is a positive in this film. This is a tough one, man. I'm gonna come in with a solid 2.5 out of 10, easily the worst Final Destination movie, and the one that I don't know how they made a fifth one after this, because it really should have ended here, because there's no saving grace in this movie. It's a piece of shit. But with that said, there was one more entry to be had up to date. I think somewhere down the line they will reboot this franchise. I'd be very surprised if we don't get a sixth Final Destination film. But right now, as the recording of this video, this is the final one. And this is from 2011. This is Stephen Quayle's Final Destination 5. Yes, Final Destination 5. I will not lie. I had not seen this one since I had seen it in the theater back in 2011, opening weekend, until about a week ago. So it has been 9 years since I watched this movie. I know most people will say it's the third best one. It's the best one after the first two. I don't know if I can agree with that, whereas I just rewatched both that and 3. I think 3 is much more memorable than this for whatever reason. I think it has a little bit better characters, a little bit better direction. It's just a little bit better. I think the reason that people like this one more is because of the ending. I think people remember the ending of this one and say that's the third best one. That's the best one after the first two. I can understand that if you feel that way. I totally respect it. I think the third and fifth one are close. I think it's as close as it gets. As a matter of fact, I had the IMDb synopsises up here. They have the same rating. Both have a 5.8 on IMDb. So even on IMDb, they're tied at the exact same rating. That's pretty crazy. This one, I honestly think this one's a little bit fucking overrated. I think if this one didn't have the ending that it does, it would honestly be very much forgotten. I think there's one really good kill in this that felt in the vein of the first two films. And that's the gymnastics scene, which I really like. But I'll get to that in a minute. This one is I can read the plot synopsis. Survivors of a suspension bridge collapse learn there's no way you can cheat death. I swear to God, it's the plot synopsis, one sentence. Um, I will say, okay, again, I can start with positives here. I like the opening bridge sequence better than the previous two movies. I think it's better than the roller coaster. I think it's better than the NASCAR. Only because they use creativity again, right? Like they have one guy, he doesn't just fall off, he gets burned by tar and falls off. You have one girl who she slips, she grabs all this stuff, and she survives the fall into the water. And then, of course, a car falls off the ledge and crushes her. I like that. I like one guy gets whacked by one of the things that hold the bridges up. You know, one guy gets impaled by all these spikes and stuff. That stuff's fine. That stuff I like. I think the opening sequence is decent. I thought that was really good. But again, too much CGI. It really it ruins the opening scene. If you had done most of that, granted, I know it's tough to do a bridge collapse in practicality. I'm not stupid, but I think at the same time, it does kind of hurt it that there is a lot of CGI in that opening scene. Just to me, just my humble opinion. It's not horrible, but it is. Aiden's saying in the comments, it's fun. I agree, it's fun. I think it's fun. Yeah, you know, like same here, man. That gymnastics death scene, that's the one that really gets me. I'm going to get into that because that's a fantastic, like one of the best kills of the series. I think it's a fun opening. I do think the way they all fucking get off the bus is it's the most laughable in this one. Like basically Nicholas D'Augusto, he's the lead character, he's the vision. He grabs his girlfriend, they get off the bus, and they're running off and like everybody just comes out. It's so fucking cliche. It's like, huh? What's going on? And like they all just fucking follow him for no reason. They all seem to like not buy his story until they just all randomly get off to check on him. It's so lackluster. Like rewatch that scene and just pay attention to how everybody got off that bus. It's horribly lazily done, man. It's really bad. But whatever, they get off the bus, and then, of course, one by one, they start to die in the same order, right? I think, again, there's not too many great death scenes in this one. The one I like and the one I want to talk about is the gymnastics one. There's this girl, and she does this gymnastics, you know, practicing and stuff, and she's getting ready for her big, you know, whatever match. And she's on this balance beam, and this screw falls from this air conditioner and it has perfect top spin on it. And she's doing all this routine, and you're like, oh my God, she's going to step on this screw. She's going to step on this screw. And you're like, you're just waiting for it to fucking happen. And again, that felt like the first film. That felt like the second film, just waiting for, oh my God, what is going to happen here? And again, they work at ABC where they work, and you're like, oh my God, how is this going to be? Like, is she going to step on it and fall? Is she going to step on it and fall into, they have this like little wire that's broken. There's water near it. Is she going to fall and get electrocuted? They set up all this stuff really, and it's well done. It's really, that suspense and atmosphere for that scene alone is there. Of course, she gets off the balance beam fine. She's on these poles doing flips and whatnot. The next girl on the pole, or on the balance beam, I should say, she steps on the screw, falls into this powder that they use to get good grip. It goes into the girl's eye. She does a complete crazy flip in the air and breaks her spine and entire body. And man, it's just, you just go, oh my fucking God. Brilliant. That's the best scene in this movie, and it's probably one of the best kills of the franchise. It's just excellently done, and it's very much in the vein of James Wong's film and David R. Ellis's both of their first efforts of the series. That's really well done. And I do think I actually don't mind the laser eye surgery one. I think that one's fun. That one again felt like in the vein of maybe even the second film with the dentist's office. This was the eye doctor, and she's getting laser eye surgery. And of course, it's not her eye that burns out. It's she trips on something that she threw on the floor and falls out the window after. Again, fun. But there's some of these, man, they're almost too quick in this film. I don't really like the one where it's just the random dude and they're like, oh, who's next? Who's next? And this wrench gets caught and it flies and hits him in the face. Eh, That one's shitty. There's one where this guy is up in one of the survivors' face and he's yelling at him, and somehow this hook comes down and stabs him in the neck. What? Like, and it looks bad to me. I know a lot of people love the Buddha kill. And I will say the acupuncture that scene that you're like, holy shit, because he falls off the table. It's this fat fucking pervert guy. He falls off the table and all the acupuncture go into him. That's great. And then the room catches on fire and you're like, oh man, this guy got burned to death. Nope, this fucking Buddha falls off and crushes his face. That's a fun one. Again, this one feels very Friday the 13th. It does feel very fucking Friday the 13th. The characters, again, you have, your final guy, your douchey friend, your pervert, your asshole, your hot chick. Like there's a scene where she's like, "This isn't baby fat, it's tits." Like all the characters in the movie are really generically written like a slasher film. Just like Part Three, it's very similar with the character models. But yeah, other than that, on the kills, not the greatest. They do introduce this idea that maybe if you murder somebody, you get their lifespan, but it ends up being all bullshit. So that doesn't lead anywhere. I appreciate the attempt of trying that, but I think they should have just went back to the whole what if somebody dies out of order? Like, would that stop it? And I think that'd be a cool thing to do and just be like, oh my God, this stopped it. Us killing this person out of order, that stopped death's design. And now we're free to go. We're going to live now. That would have been really cool. I think one of these movies should have tried to do that, but they don't do it. This movie that they introduced, that is what it is. But the thing that most people remember about this movie is the finale, of course, where the entire movie, the characters are talking about Paris and we're going to Paris. You learn that this is a prequel and that they get on flight 180 at the end. They see Devon Sawa's character get kicked off the plane. And of course, you know the rest that happens from there. I like the ending. It's clever. You never see it coming, really. And they give you a couple hints, but the first time you're watching it, you never see that coming. I do think it's well done twist ending. But all in all, I don't know, man. I don't feel it with this one. I think it's very unmemorable. Like I was saying to myself last night, if this one was so good, why have I not watched it in 9 years? Whereas the third one, it's dumb fun. I've watched it several times since I first saw it. I have a good time with it. The characters are more memorable. The kills are more memorable. Really, they are. Aside from that one gymnastics kill, and I know a lot of people like the Buddha kill. Uh, the deaths in this movie, they're a little too quick. They're not as fun. They're not as memorable to me. Uh, I know a lot of people, they like Stephen Quayle and they think he did a great job and they brought it uh, back to the basics and back to strength. And I know a lot of people say this is the third best one, and that's cool. I just personally, I think it's a little bit overrated. I think people see that ending and go, "Oh man, that's a great movie." But I think it's in a lot of ways the movie up until then it's very lackluster. It's better than four, trust me. It's way step in the right direction than four, and I think that maybe had something to do with it. Maybe people hated four so much, then when they saw five, they were like, "Man, this is really good." Um, and that's an interesting thing. But this one ends, and then I think what was cool about this, they have a whole series montage in 3D, and they play that AC/DC song, "If You Want Blood, down, you got it." Fantastic. I like that whole kind of montage of the series, and it really makes me wonder as I was watching the end credits to this film last night, is this really our generation's Friday 13th series? Is it? Because I think about it, like a lot of the Friday 13th films had moments where they'd show death scenes from the other movies, like the opening of part 7 and Jason's out there and the crazy Ralph quotes and all this stuff and these fun death scenes that they set up and these formulas, right? I think in a lot of ways it is. And I think it's weird because the first two, I think there is so much more to them, but then it honestly becomes like a slasher franchise. It really does. Like 3, 4, and 5 feel very much like slasher movies with not much psychology there. 3 probably more than the other two. But and in a lot of ways it's in a ways like Hellraiser, right? Where the first two have this real deep meaning and then the third one it becomes mainstream slasher like and then the rest of them completely drop the ball from there. But I think that in a lot of ways this is our generation's kind of schlocky fun popcorn brews dews pizza and broskies type of movie. You could turn on any of them other than the fourth one and get fun, stupid enjoyment out of the death scenes. And I think that in a lot of ways, that's really cool. And I think that's really important that a movie came along like this and got people going back to the cinema to have fun watching horror movies again. And if for nothing else, 3 and 5 really do that. They're fun movies. They're stupid, mindless, fun movies. And then the first two, you have all that stuff, and then you have great psychology, great acting, great atmosphere and direction. So I think those 4 movies, they all have something to offer, and they all have something to bring to the table. And I think in a lot of ways, the first 3 are the most watchable. 4 and 5, 4, I'm done with 4. I'll never watch that piece of shit movie again. But 5, man, it's just crazy to me. It took 9 fucking years for me to go, hey, let me revisit this. Just for honestly the purpose of the show, because I'd forgotten a lot of the film. It's okay. The fifth one, if I had to come in with a rating, I'm not coming with a 5.5 out of 10. It's a little bit above average, a little bit better than obviously the fourth film. Well, it's probably a lot better than the fourth film. But in all, I think it's a little bit overrated. I think people see that ending and go, that's a great movie. I just think to get there, it's not as strong as the third film. It's not. It's a little bit weaker, and it's definitely not on the par of 1 and 2. So I will give that one a 5.5. So thus the ranking would be The Final Destination, Final Destination 5, Final Destination 3, Final Destination, and Final Destination 2. That's my favorite. That's be my ranking. I guess quickly I could give my favorite death scenes of the series. I really, my favorite one has to be, I love that opening, the Evan kill, the guy who won the lottery in part 2. That's a fucking fun death scene. I really like that. That's a really just the way they work it, and the guy escapes and you're like, oh, he got out, and then slip on the spaghetti, bam, impaled by a ladder. That's probably my favorite kill of the series. The bathroom one in the first one. I love the Terry Chaney death. If you want to beat him up for the rest of your life, well, then you could just drop fucking dead. Steps out, bam, whacked by a bus in front of everybody, and they're like, "Oh my god, brilliant!" That's a brilliant one. Of course, the entire premonition scene of Final Destination 2, the car, it's just incredible. Just really, really, really well done stuff. I love the gymnastics kill in part 5. I think as stupid as the tanning bed one is, it's pretty scary. Like that would be a horrible way to die. So I'll throw that one in there. That one scares me. The weight room one, that one got me every time I watch that. I just go, oh shit! Like just like cringe at that, man. Um, there's a lot of really good death scenes in these movies, and I think that in a lot of ways they do have a lot to offer, like the Friday the 13th films do have to offer. So in a lot of ways, I really appreciate and respect the series for that. And honestly, I would like to see this series return. And in a world where we have a new Halloween trilogy coming out and a possible Hellraiser reboot, and eventually down the road, because the Craven family has the rights now, you'll get another Freddy movie down the line, and Child's Play and all this stuff. All those, man, I'm good. I honestly, there's nothing more to say. And this may be the same thing. They may have run out of steam because in a lot of ways it does feel same shit, different day. Especially 3 and 5 feel like remakes of the first one. But I will say that I think if you just added something different, like the invincibility element, and made the movies different, like, yeah, you could still have the one by one they start to fall. I'm not saying you don't have to do that, but I think it would be cool to say, hey, we broke Death's design and we all survived, and it's not coming back for us. Because in all of them, they feel like, oh, we beat it, and obviously they didn't, right? So like Devin Sawa's character is written off in part 2. Oh, he got killed by a brick. What the fuck? And the characters in part 2 are written off in part 3. You see like a news bulletin of it. Like what? Like that's what happened to these characters? I don't like that, man. I think that's really lame to kill off characters off screen in between films. That's like a new level of bullshit to me. Um, but man, I think these movies are a lot of fun, and these movies are perfect to watch around any time of the year. Just really cool, fun movies that make you think, make you have some fun. And man, I do love the Final Destination series. So this was a really fun episode to get to talk about all these movies, man. I do like most of them, of course, with the exception of part 4. but yeah, man, I had a really good time discussing these movies and this franchise as a whole. It's definitely one that was fun to revisit, and it was fun to do an episode on. So thank you all for watching. This was a really, really fun little episode here. I know Dead Pit's live now, so they're doing a sequelitis of Jaws the Revenge and Three from Hell, which should be really their thoughts on Jaws the Revenge is probably funny. Three from Hell I actually liked, so I don't know. I know a lot of people hated it, but I don't think it's one of the worst sequels of all time at all. I actually thought it was a really good movie, but that's just me. I know I'm probably alone in that. But next week, I will be back talking none other than my top 10 Tales from the Dark Side episodes, kicking off October in style. I made my list. I've checked it twice. I made it on my phone, of course. So I'm really, really excited to talk about my top 10 Tales from the Dark Side episode. That's perfect timing for October season. So anybody, everybody, Aiden, Neon Black Reviews, Need Gore, I saw you guys were here most of the entire time. Thank you guys very much for the support. I really appreciate it. Much blessings to you. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. Keep it real, keep it creepy, keep it fresh, and we will be back next month. Yes, a week away from October, the best time of the year for any and all horror fans. And we're going to be talking all things Tales from the Dark Side for sure. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Great stream, dude. Yo, absolutely, man. Thank you so much for stopping by. I really appreciate it. And keep up the great work with your Masters of Horror reviews, because I've really enjoyed the hell out of them. And I know we're nearing season 2, so that'll be really fun. Warning, the Toby Hooper one sucks. I don't know if you've rewatched it, but the fucking, what the hell was that even called? The Damned Thing? That's a piece of shit. Holy cow. I would love to hear your thoughts on that one. I don't know if that's going to be more. I know some people that like it, so maybe I'm alone in that. But man, I don't know. That's that one review I'm definitely looking forward to. And then Aiden, thank you very much for watching the whole time, man. I really do appreciate it. So I am going to be hopping off now. Thank you all for joining. I really do appreciate it. We will catch you next time only on Grande's Graveyard. Too sweet. Peace and have a wonderful weekend.